Hello, I'm Kerryn Powell, the Network Catalyst, and I have a series now called Conversations to Amplify and Inspire. These interviews and conversations that I'm going to have with a range of people will let you see that the business owner in front of you has so much more in their life than their business. And that's what the beauty of networking and building relationships is, because you get to expand your own horizons, have your ideas challenged, and meet some incredible people. Today, I'd like to introduce you to Paula Hanson from Luscious Choirs and also Imperative Solutions. Hello, Paula.
Hello, Kerryn. How are you?
Very good, thank you. And what's your background that you're
Me?
an expert and able to help us in this field?
Right. Well, apart from being a sassy, wordy woman that's never been shy and coming forward, actually, it's not the entire truth. So for me, I wanted to be a singer. I wanted to be an opera singer. And I knew that's what I wanted, and I felt such a drawing to it. However, I couldn't sing in tune. I couldn't be heard. And I had a really long journey to get to where I got to as an international elite standard performer. But along the way, I learned a lot, and I learned a lot about not just the physical mechanism of singing, but also what goes on in here and in here, to be able to stand up in front of people and say what you need to say, sing what you're there to sing, and to build something. So that's my performance background. But at the same time, because there's very, very rare for a performer in Australia to be able to make a full-time income from their performing. And if you do, it's the very, very narrow, 3% at the top. So I had a parallel business career. So I worked in high-level public service roles, senior administration, project management, did a lot of legal type positions. And I've got part of a law degree and half an MBA and a master's in applied law and project management and all sorts of other things. So I had this parallel business life as well. And now with what I'm doing is bringing all of that together to help people in business. So when I started my choirs, which is very much my passion, and teaching women to sing and finding that joy, and my whole life as a singer, the number one thing that would be said to me was, oh, I wish I could sing. I'd really love to be able to sing, but I can't, or I've got a bad voice, or I'm tone deaf, or I'm this, or I'm that. So I do that to show other people how easy it is to learn how to sing and to sing in a way that is pleasing and is lovely to listen to.
So I think there's quite a correlation between people's fear of speaking as well, and singing. So
yeah. I think it's even worse, actually.
To sing, yes.
No, to speak.
Oh.
So I think the number one, everybody's number one fear is dying. And number two is speaking in public.
I think a lot of people would say singing in public would be there too.
It is I had a vocal coach that used to say to me that, singing on stage was like standing there and unzipping yourself and letting everybody see what you look like on the inside. Mm-hmm. But I know for me as a performer, it's far easier for me to take on the mask of a character that I'm performing and to sing on stage than it was to speak. And that was a skill I had to develop in business, because I did a lot of presenting. I did a lot of training. I was a trainer, and I used to coach people in business communication skills. So I had to get over that stuff as well. And yes, it is scary. But you know what? Everybody's scared. You're no different to anybody else. Being scared doesn't make you special. Doesn't mean that nobody else feels this way. Everybody feels this way. So if we can just all acknowledge that we all feel this way, get over ourselves a little bit and, step up.
That's how I
because
feel about networking too. You know, everybody feels, you know,
exactly,
even I feel uncomfortable sometimes going into a new space, but I also
yeah.
I'll miss out on a huge amount if I don't push myself forward.
Well,
So,
that's it.
mm,
And everybody's feeling the same way.
mm,
You know, we've been, you know, conditioned to believe that what we feel, especially in terms of our fears and anxieties, that nobody else could possibly feel this way.
mm,
But in
mm.
fact, everybody does. Most people are frightened about speaking in public.
Yes,
Most people are nervous walking into a room for the first time. And it's just developing the skills to be able to do that. So each time you do it, it becomes just that little bit easier. And it gets to a point where it becomes second nature, you know.
sure.
But if you've practiced how to walk into a room, each time you do it, it's going to be easier.
Sure. So when you talk at the dinner, I know you're going to perhaps give us some tips and things, but you're talking about, you know, your presence and just walking into a room and controlling your breath. Do you think they're things you can use for networking or for presenting for a speech as well,
Uh,
or to do a presentation?
Absolutely.
Mm,
Absolutely. So presence is key.
mm,
Presence comes before strategy in your business, to quote one of my mentors. And without presence, you're never going to be seen.
mm,
As well as presence allows you to create a level of magnetism that naturally draws your ideal client to you. So when we start out in business, for ourselves especially, we can get very overwhelmed with this concept of, well, who's my ideal client? And then we, you know, nut that down and we niche it. And there's all these types of words out there for how we define who our ideal client is. But even if you've niched it down so far to who your ideal client is, those numbers can still be incredibly overwhelming if you start to look at demographics of what that actually means. But then it's, as a lot of marketing experts tell us, it's about how many customers do you want?
mm,
How many customers do you actually need in your business? And how many customers can you actually service
mm,
in your business based on the time that you have available?
mm,
When you do that, the number becomes much more manageable.
mm.
And that in turn increases, I know for me, that amplified how positive I felt about the business I was offering, that many, I can do that. So once you know what that is, when you know the skills of holding presence and walking into a room and having that, and if you know what your message is and you've learned how to embody that, which are the techniques that I teach, every conversation you have is laying the groundwork to those ideal clients finding you. And it'll be that in every conversation that you have, people will feel exactly what it is you are on about without you even saying, I do X, Y, Z,
Mm.
because you're living it.
Yes, yes. I think, you know, the thing I enjoy about networking is to meet face to face and to
Mm,
feel, you can feel the connection with someone.
absolutely.
You know, we met networking, and then at the National Women's Business Awards, I was in an activity with you for singing, and that was
Yeah,
sort of the first time we'd been in the same room, really.
yeah,
And through the conversation, I've also learned about your passion and your desire and the concert that you had yesterday. So whilst you're talking
yes,
at ITM, um,
yes.
and we'll share some tips then, perhaps tell us a little bit about the concert yesterday and what drove you to run that concert and your passion and, you know, really who you are. You are a
Yeah,
business owner, but there's so much more, and that's what the value of good conversation can uncover.
absolutely. So I started my choirs 12 months ago, just 12 months ago, because I was at that point in life where I'm on my own with a young man, and he has some special needs, so it takes up a lot of my time. But I also didn't want to get another 20 years down the track and have him out there in the world doing his thing, and I had nothing left. And I've just turned 50. At 70, the prospect of trying to create something, generate something, then is more challenging. It's not impossible, and I'm certain that by 70, doing what I'm doing now, I will have evolved, and there'll be other things that I'm doing. But this is what I'm doing now. And I realized the number one thing that I missed in my life was running a women's choir. So I thought, and somebody encouraged me, and she said, do that. So many people want to be in a choir. Do that. And then as I started to look at the numbers and what it looked like, I went, actually, there's a business here if I create this the right way. So I set about doing that, and very so people have been attracted, but I can tell you, all of my clients have come from networking, all of them.
Yes. When you hear choir, I instantly think church music.
Yes.
So tell us the sorts of music that you, and how you choose the appropriate music that you work with your women.
Yep. So yes, definitely not church-based. We use churches to rehearse and perform because they're good acoustic, and the size and the seating's there for me. I don't have to go there and set up seats every week.
Sure.
But no, it's not religious-based music. If we do a song that has a religious theme, it's because there's something in that music that I think is worth singing. I pick repertoire that is that speaks to a woman's story and a woman's passage through life. And I choose music from pop, from country, from jazz, from traditional, from folk music and classical music. But it has to suit the women I have in front of me, and it has to suit where they're at vocally. So I arrange the music myself to suit where they're at as we're building skills in the choir. And each choir that I run develops its own personality, which is part of the joy of it. And I've got some amazing women in my choirs. So as there's a core repertoire that everybody learns, but as the personality of each choir shows itself, that leads me to choosing repertoire specifically for that choir, so that there is a diversity and a breadth of experience amongst the choirs, as well as a core component. But then that means we get to an end of year situation like yesterday, and we have a concert that each choir can showcase what they do, as well as come together in a much bigger choir to sing the songs that we've all learnt.
Right. With YTM, we have men and women in the room, and I know we had a conversation that men's choirs are different. They're different tones. It's harder to combine the two choirs. But with networking, that can also be a challenge as well, because there are different conversations come out of it.
That's right.
There, the conversations and the connection between the group is really important too. And so for YTM, my philosophy is very much that men and women come together because of the diversity of their skills. So
that's right.
Do you run any male choirs at all?
No,
not
I don't.
No, that's
not
okay.
at this point. Not at this point. Look, I'm very open. If there were a group of men that genuinely said we would love to be in a choir, I would start a man's choir.
So when you speak of YTM, though, the presence and the breadth and the confidence building is the same for all humans, not
absolutely. We're, the basic, and the thing with presence, while it sort of starts to sound like it's woo energetic stuff, it's not. We know you can watch somebody walk into a room and you go, wow, they've got presence. It's not about being able to stand up on stage and have stage presence. It's about being able to hold that about yourself. And it's actually a physical trick. And it's something that it can be taught and practiced. And the more you practice it, the more you're able to turn it on and off as you need to.
Oh, I hope we can do that at the dinner. That will be good.
We can. Yeah. And that way you start to get a sense of it, and it becomes a very powerful thing in your life. And clients that have worked with me one-on-one have found lots of things shift for them. So it's not just about being more confident when they stand up to speak. They actually find that they don't get the vocal problems that they were getting sometimes out of nerves, sometimes out of not understanding how to use this, because it's all connected.
Mhm.
And the larynx, and where we produce our voice is very much connected to our presence. And the more that we can connect the two, the better the voice is, and the more reassuring your message is when you speak as well. But what they find is they come to me with this specific goal about wanting to speak in public or have their voice be more secure and not fail them when they speak in public. But then they find that there are these other shifts that happen for them with their relationships, with especially with kids. It makes a difference with kids. If you're somebody that's always saying to kids, can you pick up your bag? Can you pick up your bag? Can you pick up your bag? And you turn on presence, some kids pick up the bag without you even have to say it, you know?
Yes.
And it works. It works with my little boy as well.
Yes.
So there's all those benefits, and just makes you feel better about yourself. It really does.
Right. So yesterday's choir concert was to raise money for Share Dignity, and
Yes.
you feel very strongly and rightly so about this organisation. So can you share a little bit about that and why?
I will.
So
Yeah,
much?
thank you. So Share the Dignity is a charity that works specifically, their primary focus has been women who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. They also support women who are survivors of domestic abuse. And the reason I've chosen them to partner with in my business is that the demographic that is most at risk of homelessness is women over 55. And in a civilized, progressive country, that is disgusting.
Mm.
But the main reason for that is that it's women who take the time out to be caregivers. It is women who get to the end of a relationship and the partner has been able to build their super and they haven't. And even in the transaction of a financial settlement, the female partner often ends up disadvantaged as a result and doesn't have the super set aside for their later years. For me, I'm a single parent, and that risk for me is apparent all the time. So I feel it very strongly, and I also feel that it is just not good enough.
No.
If women take time out, and this applies to men as well, as we've got situations where men take time out to be caregivers, and I don't want this to be a polarized issue, but whoever takes time out to do the caregiving, at a minimum, their superannuation should be paid in full every year that they are out of the workforce caregiving, because at the end of their working life, they should have the same superannuation that everybody else has had the ability to build. Mm. And if you've taken time out to be a carer, now and it applies at both ends of our lives, if we've taken time out to raise children, and then in our later years with aging parents, if we're taking time out to look after aging parents, this needs to be addressed. And I'm really passionate about it. And, you know, people have always said to me over the years, oh, you should go into politics. Well, I don't want to go into politics because I can't play that game.
Yes.
And I'm not interested in the game of politics, but I certainly am quite prepared to lobby and chew the ear off any parliamentarian that'll give me 15 minutes to start making this a part of Australia's future as we build something so that everybody gets to age with dignity.
Yeah, I think it's very right. YTM's very connected with Fitted for Work, and one of the reasons there was that my mother left my father in the 70s, and she was the sole breadwinner and bringing me up as well. And I can relate to how hard that was for her to work in, particularly she sold cars, so she was in a male-dominated industry, and life was very challenging. So we've always connected with what Fitted for Work do, and I know they believe very strongly in what you're saying too about the right for women to have financial independence and the opportunity. Exactly.
Well, it is the imperative, you know. That's you know, my overarching business is independence imperative.
Yes.
And it's not just for me, it's for every woman. I think it's so important that no matter what it is we do, no matter what choices we make about whether we continue to work or whether we parent, or whether we combine the two, whatever it is we choose to do. And I think far more importantly, we need to start to seeing that all of those things are options.
Yeah,
They're choices that we make.
Yes.
They are not the obligations. They are not our, what did somebody say to me when I was pregnant? It's like, well, it's what you're made for. It's like, oh, actually, no.
No, it's all about choice.
I'm made to do many other things.
Yes.
But, all of those things, when male or female, they're all the choices that we have.
Mm.
But true equity is about allowing everybody to reach the same level.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Yes. That's where the work is.
Yes. So taking us back to singing and speaking up and standing out, obviously, a good place to start if someone's feeling a bit insecure, a bit like they need to hide behind a bushel, is to be pushing their boundaries and becoming part of a choir, or to developing themselves to realize that they do have a voice and they can connect with other people. So
it absolutely, joining a choir becomes a peak performance activity.
Yes.
Because it places you, once you realize, oh gosh, I sang in tune today.
Yes.
Oh, I've learnt a song. I know all the words. I've stood up and I've performed. Those become things that you look at and you go, I never knew I could do that.
Yes.
So then you look at the rest of your life and you go, now what else can I do?
Absolutely. Confidence building and making a difference to yourself, and I'm sure it helps mental health as well, that you're feeling even just breathing better and then taking in oxygen.
Exactly. The stats around the physical benefits of singing and choir singing, improving your breath, improving your lung function, therefore improving how every cell in your body gets oxygen, is proven. Yep, the better that you breathe. You get those that better oxygenated blood up here, so it allows the transfer of the chemicals and the nutrients. It does affect your mental health to the positive. Long term, the psychological and physiological benefits are showing that it has the potential to limit your risk to dementia. It keeps you more engaged as you age. It improves your memory. It improves your recall. It increases your joy and connection with other people, which is so important as we age. Yes. And the other thing, it stops this getting old. People don't realise when we start to pick up the phone when we get older, we start to sound like we're old. Yeah. And the older we get, we sound even older. And that's just because this hasn't been moving. You got to keep it moving. Yeah.
Excellent.
And if you learn how to keep this moving, it doesn't matter about the hormonal changes that occur, that you're still going to sound young. So when you pick up the phone, and especially if you're in business for yourself and you're going to be working till you're 70 or 75, and even if you're doing something part-time because you love what you do, if you can still pick up the phone and sound like this vital, energetic, fantastic human being, people won't care what the number is and what your next birthday is. And that's where we're going. This whole, I always laugh at the boomers. I love all the boomers. Because you're the ones that have invented this whole, life begins at 40, 50's the new 30, 70's the new 40, because nobody wants to admit they're getting old.
No, it's just age is just a number.
It's just a number. It's an experience level. If you think about a game, I'm at level 50, and it's all up from here.
Can people contact you if they would like to join a choir or do some work with you on developing their speaking skills? What's the best way?
So, two ways to reach me. So my choirs are on Facebook, Luscious Choirs for Women. And we are in the Bayside area at the moment, but I'm expanding rapidly. And next year, my plan is to reach 500 women in Melbourne next year.
Fabulous.
So it'll be a huge concert this time next year, which is very exciting.
Yes.
And my coaching business for speakers and people in business is Speak Up, Stand Out. And that's also on Facebook.
Wonderful. Wonderful. All right. We'll look forward to having further conversations with you and watching the development of Luscious Choirs. Thank you, Paula Hanson.
Thanks, Kerryn. Such fun.
Thank you.